The story is waning, and soon only darkness may remain. Remnants of what you call light will swallow themselves whole, and the dark void of the horrifying unknown will prevail. But is the death of all that you have ever known always a bad thing?
The fire seems fragile and torn apart. The cycle yet turns through peace and through war. From the crimson ashes of the annihilated rises the saviour of all. The unkindled sets out, periling his life for a place forevermore. Beware the ashen one, the trident of the heathens doth harm. For thy shan't lose courage, nor thine victorious charm. Watch out, for the path seems barbarous and fierce, for thy bravery ceases to ponder, whilst the victory is near. Gallop along the swamp, the high wall and the fire, in the midst of the darkness as thine heart desires. Alas, the evil kind's art invincible in tales. Feed thou heart with pain and suffering, through sadness and despair. And pain and suffering and sadness and despair. And pain and suffering and sadness and despair. And pain and suffering and sadness and despair. Pain and suffering, sadness and despair.
Throughout all my years of playing video games and consuming all kinds of art, never have I ever come across anything that has challenged me in the same way as Dark Souls. I know that is not a particularly hot or controversial take. Dark Souls is difficult. Or so I've been told, since I am in fact an MLG pro gamer. However, if I were to go ahead and make the 10,000th video just regurgitating the fact that Dark Souls equals hard, it wouldn't be entirely true. Yes, difficulty is a big part of Dark Souls and the From Software formula at this point, but there oh so much more. The introduction of this video itself can be encapsulated within a single choice. One made at the edge of a dying age, with a flame that's all but begging to be put out in a world as decayed and corrupted as it may be, too scared to let it. And honestly, I understand. Is Gwyn really to blame for the first sin? Would anyone not do the obvious to keep their positions of power and comfort? I think we've all been in positions similar to his, albeit obviously on smaller scales. Faced with a similar choice, I think most of us would choose to link the fire, which however isn't always optimal. To understand what I mean by that though, I need to explain how we got here. The world that you're introduced to at the beginning of Dark Souls is broken. Dying, some of it even beyond death, barely held in this state by gods and their children who suffer the consequences of prolonging this age every living moment, even if it costs them everything. The age of gods cannot end, they think, for they are gods, right? They deserve the ultimate power and command of this world that they have taken from the ancients. Hidden in that power though is fear. Fear of letting go of this world that is by all accounts writhing in agony, filled to the brim with undeath and disease, for it is a world that is still theirs and it is all that they have known. And so countless undead armies fight to link the fire, tasked with keeping the crusade against the all-engulfing flow of nature. The visibly aching state of the world around you begs the question though, how much longer can they go on living in this state? Is the death of all that you have ever known a bad thing? I'm gonna be honest, I started playing Dark Souls 3 quite recently whilst waiting for Elden Ring to come out. However, my first dance with the behemoth that is From Software was in 2020. A year full of social distancing, entanglements, and Among Us. Yes, the Among Us craze happened 2 years ago.
We live in a deep, dark abyss, and time really is convoluted.
Lol. I picked up Sekiro knowing its reputation amongst my masochistic acquaintance, but I approached it as a normal dude who was interested in Sengoku era Japan, video games, and loved big athletic men with swords. And I am definitely, completely, 100% secure in my masculinity. Why do you ask? What followed was a week of joyous exploration and discovery. A pseudo-hyper-aware state of zen, patience, and persistence in the face of challenge. I didn't find Sekiro particularly frustrating. Except for the Guardian Ape. Fuck the Guardian Ape, why the fuck does it exist? I want answers. Over time, Sekiro burrowed its way into my heart, and maybe even my top 5 lists. It's not easier or harder than Dark Souls. It's a different game from the same developers. Challenge comes with the territory. Devs like From Software transcend standard game design. Their games manage to have the depth and the lore unlike anything short of massive worlds like the Forgotten Realms or Skyrim, while maintaining a robust and challenging combat system. The main themes of From Software's magnificent art pieces to me are perseverance, acceptance, and ultimately, progress. They manage to somehow tell an engaging story through all of that. The themes of perseverance are present throughout any and all FromSoft games in the last 13 years. From the fantastical castles and swamps of the Souls series to the gothic cities and sewers of Bloodborne. And even the ancient temples and still swamps of Sekiro. Look, they have a thing for swamps. Elden Ring is gonna have multiple swamps, so be ready for that. They hate us. Every new experience with a Souls game is somewhat similar. And it goes a little something like this. You start the game, you walk 5 steps, you die. You start again, you walk 7 steps this time. You died. You start again, you walk 10 steps, golly gee, look at you go, and then you die. You start again, and maybe this time you make it through. Withered and battered, you turn a corner and find something. A bonfire, a lamp, an idol, or maybe even a friend. A sigh of relief. And a promise of safety. But with that comfort, the game also tells you to continue into yet another battering. Go on, walk another 10 steps, die, respawn, continue, conquer, it seems to say. For no matter how hard it has been or how hard it will be, you are not there yet. In case you haven't caught up yet, I lied to you. I am not a pro gamer, dear viewer. Shocking, I know. My experience with Dark Souls 3 was the same as anyone starting out. I started a new game, created a character in my own beautifully charming image, hid it behind a full suit of armor and promptly got beat the fuck up by Gundam. 5 times. I made my way to Firelink Shrine afterwards with the big, coiled and girthy sword shoved up my ass. I met my waifu, we spent some quality time together, and off I was, on my way to the high wall of Lothric. It was around this time when I realized that the difficulty of Dark Souls is akin to banging your head against an actual goddamn wall till one or the other breaks. But each little brick that you manage to bring down is a permanent piece of progress. And slowly but surely you start to see the omnipotent light that exists just beyond it. You do not lose when you die, you lose when you quit. I was stuck on the first Lothric night for about 3 hours, Over the course of a few days, I would start up the game, try it a half dozen times and give up. I'd quit. I'd tell myself it just wasn't worth going through. Why was I expected to run through the same little corridor over and over again? Why was there no other option present? Why would I have to kill the same boring enemies over and over just to get yeeted back to the bonfire by the night? My eyes hurt, and the clanging of swords and shields started scraping along my eardrums, and my annoyance knew no end. Frustrated, I went to the most credible source of information on the internet. There I asked my fellow sweaty dung piles whether Dark Souls 3 was hard or just unfair. I wrote my whole sob story down and then rewrote it. Better because I was afraid it would get buried under the heaps of PvP clips. Soon enough, my post had garnered a few responses. Admittedly, I didn't really listen to what they had to say, but they were surprisingly really nice. Except for the one guy that said, "Lol, just get good." Fuck that guy, but also, fair enough. Eventually, I stopped banging my head against the wall for a second and just looked around. Suddenly, that small corridor just opened up. I saw a path through the fire, I found a shortcut, got some life-draining uk, and finally, I broke through. From that point on, it was just an exhilarating journey of dodge rolls, iframes, and anxious sippy sips through whatever the game had to throw my way. I began to understand what builds were and how weapons worked. I made new friends and even more new enemies. I realized that armor meant nothing at all and that fashion souls was the only way to go. I dumped everything into strength and dex and even installed a mod that let me play as 2B. But that's besides the point. The point is to persevere. I didn't give up and eventually I saw the light. Now Elden Ring comes out in a few days and I wanted this video to not just be a subjective expression of my experience with the Souls games, but also a banner of hope to anyone that goes through similar experiences, be it with this game or anything else. Exhaustive, claustrophobic repetitions devoid of anything but dread. This lesson, this message, I think is one that extends beyond the medium of video games, because fiction imitates reality and this world is no exception. It's being stuck in with a toxic work environment, or a friend that just isn't who they seem to be. The same cycles, too familiar for us to let go. Even with my limited experience, I wanted to use Dark Souls as a representation of perseverance, how it's necessary for us to push through rather than quitting and wasting away. There is always light, for without it, there wouldn't be darkness. We now move on to the end of the world. An improbable question, a fearful impasse. Dark Souls 3 has 4 of these ways you can choose what your world becomes. An ultimate expression of your strength. And a choice that may lead you into truly appreciating this journey that you have been through. The first is the cookie cutter. Do what you have been told. In this case, rekindle the fire. Is that not what you're supposed to do? Almost everyone involved in your story has pushed you towards this end. It might even seem like your sole purpose is to prolong this pitiful, cowering husk of a world's suffering. A fate that will eventually lead it right back to where it is now, repeating the cycle of comfortable agony and despair, in a melancholy warmth of deceit and complacency. One of the endings lets you put on a red hat, and a third lets you devour, finally taking from a world to which you had only ever given. The final ending, however, hidden behind a wall of ignorance that you must literally cut down, is to let go. To accept the world to be what it may be, but to also carry the weight and accept the cost of progress. to forgive it for its ignorance, and yet to recognize that you still deserve the right to move on.
Ashen One, hearest thou my voice still?
If you choose to let go, the first flame whimpers to a halt, and tomorrow is left to the dark, the cold, and perhaps the very gentle unknown. The world will move on and exist through peaks and troughs of ecstasy and heartbreak, through mirth and ruin, through light and dark, and so will you. What has been need not always be, and that is why you should go on.
Through pain and suffering and sadness and despair, the Ashen One would march in this world so unfair. Nevertheless, he rekindles his solidity, offering himself to triumph at all costs. Unkindled, rise from the ashes of demise, for thy shan't lose hope and thine hunger to shine. Behold the vigour of the vicious kinds, for vengeance doth conquer thy victory and triumph. All hail the unkindled, the conqueror of the fire. Against the wicked reign of light he spreads his dark. Delight thy glory and thine victorious desire. The tale of the Ashen One history shall mark.
Okay, you can skip this part if you want. Anyway, this is supposed to be the part where I say dumb shit like, hey, please like the video and subscribe to the channel and all that shit, but I'm just not gonna do that. I'm gonna take this time to mention and thank all of the people that helped me in this video, because over the past month or so this has devoured my life and I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, starting with Haunted Cup of Tea, honestly this video wouldn't be half as good as it is if it weren't for him. He was the guy I went to for lore, but even beyond that he helped me write the script and contributed to even more ideas and skits and basically everything. This script is as much mine as it is his. Secondly, I want to thank Bharat Mehra. He was the person who mixed all of this. The song playing in the background is by him. Go check it out. By the way, both of them are going to be in the description. Honestly, my mic sounds like ass and he made it sound good. So like, I don't know what wizardry he used, but yeah, thank him for that. Okay, anyway, this has been going on for quite a long time. Outros shouldn't be this long. Anyway, fuck all of you guys and bye, I guess. I don't know, this is fucking awkward as fuck. Let the beat right out.